Hello, hello! For this adventure, I decided to go to my favorite place in New York City, and that place is the American Museum of Natural History. I always make it a point to stop here whenever I'm in town, so let's go! Okay, so to start off our journey, I had to navigate a series of planes and trains and cars to get here. The planes, a little long, but not so bad. The cars, it's what you would expect. But the trains, the New York City subway system, that part was difficult. I started at the Hicksville train station, which is about 30 or so miles east of New York City and the museum. And from there, I needed to take a series of connecting trains to get to my final destination. And the entire time, I was playing a game called Let's See How Many Wrong Turns Jason Can Make. I missed 2 connecting trains, I got off at the wrong stop about 3 times, I learned the difference between the express and the local trains, because the express train does not stop at every stop, it skips stops to be faster, making me miss my exit. And I also learned how quickly train fares add up. So, in only twice the time and triple the cost, I was finally able to make it to 81st Street and the Museum of Natural History. At the time of this video, the museum has reduced capacity due to COVID, so best practice here is to reserve your tickets in advance online and schedule your arrival time during one of the 30-minute slots they have during the day. This way you can guarantee your entry as opposed to, rolling the dice by just showing up in person. Because I wanted to see everything, I purchased the Adult General Admission Plus All ticket for $33. That is a mouthful. And in doing so, that allowed me to see every permanent hall that the museum has to offer, as well as all of the special exhibitions and films. If you choose to do any of the special exhibitions and films, then my recommendation is to reserve a time slot for each of them. And if you were doing more than one, I would also space them out with like an hour or so in between so you don't have to panic run from one exhibit to the other like I did. Now, as a quick aside, in this video I will be covering the exhibits that I think are the best as well as all of the special exhibits. If I covered every single exhibit in the museum, this video would be like an hour long. But if you want to know everything that exists, I highly recommend downloading the Explorer app by the museum. The app offers a full map of the museum, guided directions to each exhibit, and some cool facts about exhibits that is exclusive to the app. 10 for 10 would recommend. And with that out of the way, let's go to the museum. When you first walk into the museum, you are met with a gigantic skeleton of a Barosaurus that's staged to be fighting an Allosaurus. Just seeing the video here and even knowing that this massive display is 80 feet tall doesn't do it justice. It towers over absolutely everything in this room, and it really helps set the tone for what you can expect as you move deeper into the museum. The very first thing that I did was the Sea Lion movie. So this film is in the La Frac Theater on the first floor, and the show is a 43-minute IMAX experience that revolves around a young sea lion and her colony trying to survive in the wild. Because this was more of a movie and less of an exhibit, I couldn't really get any footage of this for you. There wasn't any, photos and photography and videography and any other words that you can think of for that. So I just sat down, I buckled up, and I was ready to see what life is like for a sea lion pup. For me, the experience was just okay. Don't get me wrong, the 4K IMAX experience was gorgeous and the sound system was amazing, but it didn't really do anything for me that was beyond what I can get by just, watching a regular movie in a movie theater. It's not that this experience was bad, it's just that if I was strapped for time, I would choose to do something else that I can only get at the museum. So if you really like sea lions, this might be for you. Other than that, it's something that I would personally pass on. Next was the Creatures of Light. For this one, you are introduced to the world of bioluminescence, the generation of light by living things. The very first display here shows you fireflies. There are large models of fireflies everywhere, and various dioramas showing you how they glow and how they interact with each other using light. I found out that they use various patterns of flashing light to attract mates, to say hello, and even to deceive other fireflies. It was pretty cool stuff. The exhibit then moves on to glowing mushrooms and glowworms in caves, the bioluminescent organisms in tropical waters, all the way up to glowing jellyfish and monsters of the deep. So anglerfish are terrifying, and I would not want to run into any of those. I think this exhibit was fascinating. I don't know about you, but color is one of those things that we see all around us all the time, and most of us take that for granted, myself included. But being able to see all of the colors on display and hearing about what makes colors colors and how we use them in our lives was a pretty cool experience. This exhibit walks you through room after room, organized by color, and describes how colors are used by plants and animals to reproduce, signal aggression, and camouflage themselves. And the rooms also talk about how we use color in our everyday lives, from art and self-expression to games and cultural values. It really does show how influential colors can be and how it shapes the very world that we live in and our moods. This show takes place in the Hayden Big Bang Theater. This theater is a massive sphere that stretches all 4 floors of the museum. Before the show, there's this little staging area where they play a clip about the theater and the history of astronomy while you wait. And after a couple of minutes, they guide you inside the theater. There are no photos or videos allowed inside, so this is where my footage stops, but I can describe it to you. Warning, I am not an artist. Imagine walking into the inside of a sphere and the ceiling is this giant dome that they project the video onto. The room is so expansive that it almost feels like you're outside, which is kind of cool. On the floor, there are a bunch of rows and seats organized in rings pointing inward. And the best seats are the outer ring because that allows you to see the most of the screen on the ceiling. Don't worry about where you sit because the video is designed to be viewed from every angle, so it doesn't matter where you sit so long as you are on the outer ring. Now for the show itself. This space show focuses on the worlds in our solar system, and as the program goes on, we learn that seemingly dormant worlds like Venus and Mars are actually much more active than they let on. I won't go into too much detail here because there's way too much to cover, but I will say this. After the show, I was left with this feeling of awe and just realizing how tiny we are in the universe. I somehow felt like I was a part of something larger and I yearned to know more about the cosmos. So one of the next hobbies that I will be taking on is astrophotography. And if you're curious about that, shameless plug, you should subscribe to my channel and be the first to know when that video comes out. I think that this is one of the most popular exhibits out of everything in the museum, and because of its popularity, the museum has made it a requirement to join a virtual line before you can even enter the exhibit. It fills up fast, so joining the line should be the very first thing that you do when you arrive. And to join this line, you need to scan a QR code located at a few places throughout the museum. After scanning this code, you will enter your phone number and the museum will text you when it's your turn to enter. Even with that little hurdle, I think this exhibit is well worth the wait. When you first walk in, you are met with this gigantic amethyst geode, and because of its deep purples and how the light reflected off of its surfaces, to me it looked like I was staring into stars and deep into space. It's really awesome. And that's just the introduction to the exhibit. As you move further in, you are met with display after display showcasing the vast diversity of mineral species around the planet, and when they were formed and how we use them for jewelry, tools, and technology. The galleries here show and display more than 5,000 different specimens from over 98 countries, each one of them being unique. Alright, so each of the displays are organized by types of rocks, how they're formed, the regions that they're sourced from, etc. But I am a simple man and I just categorize them by big specimens and small specimens. Some of my favorites for the big ones are the azurite and malachite ore, a rock wall that changes color based on different wavelengths of light, and this half-ton spiky boy, also known as stibnite. And for me, the coolest thing was seeing both the size and the scale of these specimens, but also being able to look closely and seeing all of the intricate details and textures of the minerals. And for the small specimens, it was simply the diversity and the vibrant colors that each one offered. There were all of these amazing blues and greens and reds that almost glowed, and the texture of some of the minerals like the grape agate was strange and otherworldly. It was really weird. Think of every gemstone that you know of, and you can see both the raw and cut versions of these and all of the various gorgeous pieces that they're crafted into. There is an entire rainbow of gems, from amethyst to emerald to sapphires to topaz and garnet, and if there's a color that exists, there is some gem to go and match that. Oh, side note on the topaz. We're used to seeing gems that are at most like, I don't know, the size of your thumbnail. No. This bad boy was like 12 inches wide. I have no idea what size that is in carats, but it was a monster. I've never seen a gem so big. This exhibit was really cool, and it really demonstrates what these materials can do when in the hands of a master artist. Each piece is based off of some animal and captures its spirit in lavish detail. There was everything from alligators to giraffes and butterflies and fish. My personal favorites were this flamingo, this elephant necklace, and this bird. Especially this bird. I just really enjoyed the color choices, its pose, the curves on its body, the wings, and how the tail is shaped. I just thought it was cool. There is a reason why the Gem and Mineral exhibit is one of the most popular exhibits in the museum, and after looking through my experience, I hope you found a few reasons to make you want to visit too. So, on to the next one. So, these are all separate and distinct halls, but for me, they each serve the same purpose. There are large dioramas that depict some animal in its natural habitat and some flavor text that tells you a little bit about the creature. But the thing that stood out to me the most is the size of these animals. You know, most people know what they look like, and you might even know the height of some of them along with the picture on the internet, but it is completely different seeing a life-size version of it. For example, the elephants are massive. Like, we all know this, but there's a primal understanding of size when you stand next to it. The same with the bears and the buffalo and the tigers. They tower over you, and you start to feel really small in comparison. It's a humbling feeling. Oh, and speaking of humbling, there are a few halls dedicated to dinosaurs, and one of the main ones are the and Saurischian dinosaurs. But again, I am a simple man, and I just go and group them into dinosaurs. I think that this is another exhibit that is a must-see. There's the classic T-Rex with its massive set of jaws, the Apatosaurus that fills the entire room, the Stegosaurus and the Triceratops with all of their protective bone plating, as well as dozens of other dinosaurs and fossils. It's just a really cool place to go and feel the size and scale of these massive creatures, and to think back on a time where the Earth was so different than our own. Now, there are other exhibits like all of the cultural displays from Asia, the Pacific, Central America, Africa, etc. Like I mentioned near the beginning of the video, if I went into depth for each one of these exhibits, the video would be like an hour long. But I will leave you with a quick montage. Oh, also, something to keep in mind. I did every exhibit in one day from open to close. I think that is too much. It was a chaotic day, and I didn't really get the chance to take in everything and really spend time to enjoy everything that was on display. So if you decide to do this in one day, I would skip a bunch of stuff and prioritize the exhibits that interest you the most. Or you can take 2 to 3 days and get the full experience and really take your time. As I was leaving the museum, a quote from when I first walked in stuck with me. "It is hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed." and that's what I'm hoping to do here with my channel. So for those of you who have been following, I left my job at Microsoft to see if I could make a better life for myself. One where I had more control over my destiny. So here's to hoping that everything works out and that I have inspired you to try something new. As always, please smash that like and subscribe button and all that jazz, but most importantly, good luck, have fun, peace.